So now we got to the important part, and that is writing the actual unit tests. So this first part is important because I will show you how I like to arrange things, how I like to arrange a unit test, to put things in that class. So I think this particularly part of the course will serve as an example for the rest of the parts that remain. So what I want to begin with is I want to start unit testing the car controller class. So basically, for this class, we'll have to unit test the method get all cars and the method add new car. So we'll have to create unit tests for that. In order to start with a more simple example, I will start by creating unit tests for add new car method. So I already created a car controller test. I usually like to do that by having the shortcut Control Shift T, and it will it's more simple to create a car controller class. So in the Java package from the test package, you'll see that you'll have to have the same hierarchy in order for the coverage to be seen. I'll also show you that. Okay, so let's go to the car controller test class. I like to use Mockito, and I'll show you actually why I do that as well. If you look at this car controller class, you'll see that we have an external service, an external component, and that is the car service class. So I mentioned many times in this course that when writing unit tests, we want to isolate, right? What does that mean? This means that we are only interested what happens inside the car controller class, inside the methods, inside the car controller class. We don't care what is happening in this outside, in this external component, right? So what we'll do with this one, we are going to mock it. How we'll do that? So first we'll use the inject mock and mocks annotation, and let me write it in here. And then we'll use the mock annotation for the car service. I usually like not to write in here public or private or anything else, because for me it doesn't make sense. In a unit test, this part is not important, so we don't have to take care of that, right? What these two annotation mean. So this mock annotation tells Mockito that this car service is going to be mocked. And this inject mocks annotation is telling Mockito, is telling my unit test that all of the mocks will be injected inside this car controller. Why do I want to do that? When calling car controller, I want to mock all the car services calls. Like I said, in here, I don't care how things are happening. I only care about the end result, about what is returned. What do I mean by that? Let me start writing a unit test. This way it will be a bit easier for you to understand. So let me write, like in here again, I won't add public, private. From my point of view, it's not necessary. Okay, and let's say success. So right now I want to create a unit test for the addNewCar method that it's going to be a success. Usually when writing a unit test, I like to split it in three parts. So it's given, when, then. In the given part, I have data that is mocked. So in here, I have data that I want to mock, data that is going to be mocked. In here, I can also build responses that I'll expect. And you'll see what I mean by that. In the when part, it's the actual call of the method that we want to unit test. in our case, basically it's this car controller that add new car. And in the then part, we are having the assertions checkings. So in this part, we verify that what we expect to happen will happen. So in the given part, I'll start by creating, so if we go here, we see that this addNewCar method will return a response entity that contains a car object. Also, it's important to see that the response entity will return HTTP status created, and the response entity will have a body of car, basically, because this addNewCar method will return a car. What I usually like to do is create a car object, right? I use the builder. Now let me write everything in here. So we'll put as brand, let's say Opel, right? As manufacturer year, we'll say something like local date of, let's say minim, so we don't, okay. Then we'll have model, let's say Riva, number of seats 4, engine capacity 1.3, right. Then what we want to do is when the car service, when this method is called, we want to mock the response of that method. So logically speaking, at this point, we need to know that when this method will be called, we know that it will add a new car, and this method will return the car that has been added. Okay, so right now, how we'll do that? So we'll say something like this: when car service dot add new car with this car, so we know that it will return, it has to return the exact same car that we just been saving. So this, in this part, we just mocked the car service method that's been called in our add new car method from the controller class. So this one is pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. Then in the when part, we know that the car controller will return a response entity car, and we can name this as actual response. So this is the actual response. And we'll call add new car with the same car from here. And in then part, we have the assertions. How do we assert? We'll use assert that, right? And we'll say actual response that get status code. So we know that the status code in the happy path is equal to HTTP status created. And we also want to check that the actual response body, so actual response get body, is the same with the car, right? So as you can see, the unit test is pretty straightforward. We just created a car object, we mocked the service, the car service call, we called in here the actual method that we want to test, and then we checked that what we expected happened, right? So we know that for this unit test, we want to check the happy path. Let me put a breakpoint here. And when calling this method, So the test, as you can see in here, it built a car, right? So you can see it in here. And when the actual method is called, you'll see that we managed to mock this car service method. So it's pretty straightforward. If in here, let's say that I'm changing OD, say of A5, and then I started with debug, when calling this method, you'll see that right now it just returned what I told the method to return.